It's a race to the finish for the nation's number one recruiting class. Who do you think is number one? I have my opinion. Let's talk about it.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into the Portal podcast and welcome to National Signing Day. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal podcast your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Network, the nation's number one sports broadcasting platform. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for showing up on National Signing Day. This is a holiday to me, and to be honest, it's one of my favorite days of the year for a lot of reasons, but this discussion we're going to talk about today is the best. Who has the number one class and why? That's the real theme. Join the chat, add in your comments, discuss why you like a certain player or why you think a class is overrated. Anything you want. It's open-ended, it's opinionated, and quite frankly, it's just fun. So with that, a few comments off the bat. The whole circumstance with Georgia and Jared Curtis is probably the most fascinating recruitment situation. Vandy sneaking in at the last minute to grab him. I thought that was unique, but I decided not to do a early overview of Georgia's class for two reasons. Number one, Curtis. Number two, does Georgia add anybody late? Kirby is famous for getting guys on signing day, even if it's not necessarily something that people are expecting. Maybe they even flip out somebody else's quarterback from their class to theirs. I don't know how it's going to go, but the Dogs could do that. And that's a microcosm of college football. I think they have a top five class, but one could argue if Curtis signs with Georgia, that it's the number one class overall. And just, I've got my list up over here, kind of going through the group, like Lincoln Key's a great tight end, Pierre Dean, another edge. They've got tons of defensive linemen. There are just so many guys. And I still don't think that without the quarterback, they have a class that it really is a number one kind of class. And I'm not picking on UGA, but it's the most positionally important spot in team sports, maybe in the world, definitely in American society. I just don't see how you can rank them number one, but I love Georgia's class. A couple of points about it, just to put it in perspective. They've got 7 defensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen. Anytime you continue like this lineman-driven program, Kirby in 6 years, I believe now it's 32 offensive linemen they've signed. Some guys get cycled out because they don't meet the standards off the field or they're a problem in practice, whatever. But he's going to have linemen. And that is a theme for me for ranking classes super high. And I want to use that because Notre Dame, USC, Ohio State, like Kari Wilder for the Buckeyes, defensive lineman. I thought he was the best interior pass rusher that I hadn't seen until I saw him at Rivals 5-star. Along with Deuce Geralds, who's expected to sign with LSU today. Those are the two best guys. They're rare. Little pieces like that can move a class up or down because spots like defensive tackle, you just think run stoppers. But then there are offensive tackles like Grayson McHugh, the kid that's went from tight end to offensive tackle out of LaSalle College High School in the greater Philadelphia area, signing with the Irish. He's a little longer projection, but he has a chance to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft after he's filled out. So it's not just the impact guys. It's did you find your dudes short-term and long-term at Georgia, at Ohio State, at LSU, at Tennessee, or anywhere else. So again, everybody that has a comment, fire away, but it's a lot of fun to talk about these classes. And I'll kind of go through this. There's no particular order here. Cookie Fruit says, Joey Bryan might be the best overall prospect in the class at any position. For those of you who don't know, Joey is another kid who plays with Grayson McHugh, ironically, at LaSalle College. He's going to Notre Dame. He's 6'4 plus, great kid, receiver, possibly play some nickel, possibly even play some corner in like a cover 3 circumstance, but free safety is his expected position. He was dominant all the way through his high school career, and he was really good at Rivals 5-star when I saw him at the Colts facility this past summer. That's one of the best players in the country. I don't know who the number one guy is. Everybody can make their own opinions. If I had to go through it and talk about that, it'd be a whole nother conundrum. I'm going to stay away from player rankings individually today overall. But just speaking of Notre Dame, Rodney Dunham, I think, is the best recruit. That's my personal opinion for the Irish defensive end out of Myers Park High School in the greater Charlotte area. But again, Notre Dame's class is absolutely freaking loaded. So since we're on that, I'll flip it over here. I got my Georgia notes up, but I'll pull up Notre Dame's as well. What we got? Okay, so Dunham, Ian Premer. If you don't know about him, Great Bend, Kansas. Where in the world is that? This is a tight end that makes guys miss, kind of like a slot receiver, but he's 230 pounds, 240 pounds. And he's a guy that has some power to him. I think he will play early for Notre Dame. Also think Kari Adams, also Aiden Pouncey. Those guys are not just good defensive backs that can play safety or corner. They can play receiver. This is an elite group for Notre Dame, and versatility is a part of it. But much like Georgia, much like USC, who I'll talk about next, lineman driven. Notre Dame's class is really good because they have linemen on offense and defense. They got 4 defensive linemen. That was their biggest need. They knocked it out. I just did a podcast about Notre Dame's class in general. If you want to check it out, I just posted it within the last half hour of this live show. But they signed a bunch of linemen again. They got 6 O-line. They got 4 D linemen. They got 2 good linebackers. Their front 7 and their offensive line / tight end group, it's as good as any in the country. Defensive line and corner are usually their problems historically, and now Notre Dame is leading the way while still continuing their tradition of getting linemen, tight ends. They don't have any problem. And on top of it, with Caden Finley, in my opinion, is the best one of the group, they signed 5 wide receivers, a bunch of twitchy guys, Faison, Braden Robinson. They get guys that can make players miss now. They've changed their program. And I think along with Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia, Notre Dame is now definitively one of the nation's top 4 programs because they're good on the field. They're good on the recruiting front. Their head coach represents their program in the right way. They have a staff that stays together. And here's an odd stat about Notre Dame. This is bizarre. I don't think this has happened anytime in the last 5 years except for this year with the Irish. They haven't had a decommitment since the spring or maybe even the entire year. Like, when was the last time any program did that? It's wild. So Notre Dame, congrats to them. Let's talk about the USC Trojans, Notre Dame's traditional rival. They have the most commitments / signees, and depending on which service you go by, they have number 1. I think Notre Dame or SC by the end of the day. I'll figure it out. Those are my top 2 classes. They've got 31 guys signed with 4 more, 3 of them from Mater Dei out in LA, and then 1 kid from Hawaii they've signed. But this group is about linemen. USC had to get bigger. They needed to add depth, and they needed to add impact. Trojans did all the above. I don't know who the best player in their class is. I've kind of argued with myself about this from a couple of different vantage points. I go through it, and it's really hard. Maybe it's Mark Bowman. I just like him a lot. I'm a tight end guy. I think a 2 tight end offense where you split guys out wide is maybe the most difficult to defend. And Bowman is a traditional tight end in terms of size. He's a Mater Dei, power player, smart kid, looks the part, acts the part, great hands. He's going to be an instant impact guy for Lincoln Riley's offense. And on top of it, I'm not talking about just catching the football. I think he could be a pretty good blocker, despite the fact he's going to be a freshman who enrolled a year early. That is bizarre, but Mark Bowman is really, really good. Their linebacker group is tremendous. They've got a good group of offensive linemen. Maybe Kenye Pepe, the offensive lineman, maybe he's their best guy. If you don't want to say it's Bowman, it's dependent on how you want to look at things. I don't know. Ethan Feaster, the wide receiver out of Texas, another kid that reclassed. You could make an argument for him. Those are good players. Caden Dixon Wyatt, that's a great player. I don't know who it's going to be at the end of the day, but like they've got a great, great group. And for a lot of different people, you want to look at the linemen, that's fine. How about the other kid from Texas that probably doesn't get enough discussion? Jamian Winfield, defensive lineman out of Richardson, Texas, just on the edge of Dallas. That's a guy that for some reason doesn't get a lot of talk. Maybe it's because he's not at an elite program in Dallas, but that kid is a run stuffer that can move. USC really did a nice job there. Another comment here from the chat. Luke, any 5-star or high 4-stars who could flip by the end of the day? There are a lot of guys like Caden Dixon Wyatt recently made his decision to end up with SC. He'd been with Ohio State. This stuff can happen just overnight. I got a text from somebody that covers an SEC program. I'm going to leave it alone. Like, they didn't know, but there was a kid flipping in the morning. Like, when they woke up, it happened, and they follow this program religiously. Some of this stuff is behind closed doors. That's why I was talking about Georgia. They historically flip guys late, even before Kirby. It's arguably the best state in the country for high school recruiting and per NFL per capita. It is number one. Don't be surprised if Georgia does. Kirby's a great recruiter too. And it's not hard to sell a program that's constantly in the top five, but there will be two or three others. Who will they be? Why? I don't know. But you're going to see some guys make some decisions that probably make you shake your head a little bit. Also looking at the recruiting class for the Trojans, I'd be amiss if I didn't bring up Jonas Williams. Kid out of the greater Chicagoland area. He can move. He's got an arm. He's a kid that understands the overall theme of how to be a quarterback, meaning it's not about just hitting highlight plays. He'll hit the 4 and 6 yard plays to keep the chains moving. That's a guy that I think could be a Heisman winner in this offense. He is a tremendous fit for USC. I actually think that he's even better than the quarterback they got last year. Ironic that he's a Chicago area kid, but Jonas is a heck of a football player. Just kind of looking at their list overall, a guy that I don't think a lot of people maybe know much about. Out of Santa Margarita Catholic, and I'll probably mispronounce his name again. Great kid, met him once. Samote Kadeonga, edge rusher, 6'4", 250, 255. He will play early at Southern Cal. There are some other guys too, but I love how many guys they have that are just tremendous football players and can play different spots. He could be a weak side end, he could be a strong side end. He could be a guy, if you wanted, you could move to tight end, whatever you wanted to do. Overall, just looking at these classes in general, I think SC and Notre Dame, again, by the end of the day, we'll see if anybody else decommits, adds, etc. We'll figure out who the top class is, but those are the top two to me. After that, it's a jumbled mix. Any of Bama, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, I wouldn't have a problem with any of those four. And I'm curious to see what LSU does today because Lane Kiffin is now in Baton Rouge. Do they sign some of the Ole Miss commits? Like that's I'm not even going to look at it. It'll come across my X feed or whatever, Instagram, etc. today. But I'm curious to see the wars there. I think we're going to have a endless supply as long as Lane is in Baton Rouge of players and comments going back and forth with his social media and all that. Does Lane Kiffin make a splash in an awkward way by taking the Ole Miss recruits? That's a theme that I don't want to. I hate bringing that up, but it's a very important one. He could really cause some problems because recruits pick coaches, not schools. And I know old school fans and diehards hate that. It's just true. Doesn't matter the school involved. To that end, a lot of the kids that he's going after, they're probably the same group because geographically, Mississippi and Louisiana align. That's going to be very interesting. A couple other storylines today to watch. No matter what program you root for, answer yourself the final and most important question of recruiting. Did you get the linemen? How many linemen did you sign? I'll give you an example. Brent Key at Georgia Tech has a lineman-driven program. I hopped on a podcast yesterday to do something in regards to what's going on with Georgia Tech, etc. And before I went on, I kind of thumbnailed through their class. It'd been a little while. 2D linemen, 2 O linemen. What is going on? Georgia Tech needs especially defensive linemen. They desperately need. But 4 linemen overall, that is a fail. There's no ifs. There are no ands. There are no buts. Georgia Tech failed miserably if they signed 4 linemen or anything close to it. Key knows that, and so does everybody else on that staff. They failed. Where did your program, whoever it is you root for, where did they finish with the totality of linemen, offense and defense? If it's not at least 8, ask yourself why. And then on second points of view here, you can look at and say, are any of these guys impact players too? If you didn't get to 8 total between O and D line, and you didn't get any impact guys, your class probably isn't remotely complete, let alone where you really would like it to be. Notre Dame, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, these programs not only signed elite players, they signed linemen in bunches. It's the difference because some guys are, no matter how good you think they are, off the field issues. They don't want to practice hard enough. They can't handle the requirements from the strength program, like mentally, they just don't mature fast. Whatever it is, you're going to have misses no matter how good the kid's film was in high school. College is a different animal. Numbers matter. Did you sign enough linemen? And then, of course, the obvious one, this low-hanging fruit, did you get a quarterback? If possible, you want a quarterback in every class. Anybody you want to talk about, that's the bottom end. Sometimes the guy that ends up being the dude ends up being somebody you didn't expect. Quarterback is really hard to project because at the end of the day, especially some of the programs that use a little more advanced passing schemes, it's about post snap reads. Alabama is a great example. Ty Simpson is a very smart guy. Not everybody can run Alabama's offense. That's just true. Having stated that, here's the biggest thing. If you get one every year, again, you mitigate your chances at failure as a program. Finally, just kind of looking overall, one of the things that I probably don't talk about enough, not just balance in your class, but a way to get balance, versatile players. Notre Dame and SC, just as an example, I said, to me, those are the two best classes because they signed really good linemen, they have balance, they have impact guys, all that stuff. But they also signed a ton of players that could play like linebacker, defensive end. They could play safety. They could play receiver. Joey O'Brien, Aiden Pouncey for Notre Dame. They could both play on either side of the ball and be really good. Not just guys that could play, but they could be All-Americans on either side of the ball. That's the difference because injuries happen, transfers happen. Guys get kicked out of the program because they have problems socially, academically, whatever it is. Every program has that. Versatility also matters. It helps mitigate some of your losses whenever a guy leaves a year early or whatever it may be. With that, let's jump in the chat and just have a little more fun here. Let's see. Luke, 4-star defensive tackle, Vodney Cleveland just flipped from Texas to North Carolina. Don't understand that one. I can tell you why. North Carolina bought him. There is no way on God's green earth Vodney Cleveland is going to North Carolina unless that's a check. North Carolina is terrible. That's the era we're in, though. I'm not saying North Carolina didn't earn his respect, etc. Most kids make a decision based on relationships. I'm not buying a kid, and I've met Vodney. He's a Birmingham kid. There's no way on God's green earth a kid from Birmingham that was coveted by SEC schools is flipping from Texas to North Carolina unless it was about the check. I'm not buying it. No way in the world. But that's just the way it is for some situations. All right. Edger, do we get an IU crossover? I'm hopeful to get an idea of who we got. I'll probably do one early next week. I'm on the road. I'm actually going to an IU basketball game this weekend. I'm headed back to Indiana later tonight. I'll probably do one Saturday or Sunday, and get on there and do a crossover, talk a little IU football recruiting. I might even do one for Jacob just by myself, depending on what his schedule is. But I will definitely get an Indiana one. Probably more important to talk about what's going to happen with Indiana 2027 recruiting too. Luke, any Florida State could flip by the end of the day. They're in on some guys, but they also could lose some guys. Florida State will be literally the last school that I look at other than maybe Georgia because of their quarterback situation. Florida State, because of the situation with Norvell, I had no idea walking in today what was going to happen. None. Who's going to sign? Do you believe anybody? They didn't know who their coach was going to be till a week or so ago. And a lot of schools have been coming after the FSU recruits. That is as volatile a circumstance as you could possibly get. I have no idea what's going to happen with Florida State this offseason, but the portal, they got to be really careful. Don't jump just in the portal. They need to hit that 27 class too. X-Wing 8675. People in Wisconsin sweating, Latimer signing. Heard we won't sign until tonight or tomorrow. That's pretty smart for you to sweat it. That is an elite player. That is an NFL player. Latimer is one of the best running backs I've seen over the last couple of years. Good kid, pretty quiet, just kind of goes about his business. Plays at a really good program in Sandy Creek on the south edge of Atlanta. I think that he has vast potential. We'll see what happens, but I really don't know what his criteria is. I haven't spoken to him just over a year. So that's one that Wisconsin fans are just going to have to sweat out till he signs. Edger, football in high school is fun. Football in college is a job. Great statement. There's truth in that. And I think what he's trying to say here is the dominant high school guys, by and large, even when they do not have a lot of technique or don't even play at a great program, they overwhelm with talent, size, speed, length, those kinds of things. You go to the next level, just about everybody has size, speed, and length. If you don't take to your craft on the field, as well as act a certain way, social media, how you handle dealing with girls, how you handle dealing with coaches, boosters, etc., you're gone. These players are getting paid a lot of money, man. They're getting paid a lot of money. You're not going to go out there and just compete in any way, shape, or form. None. Without some kind of problem in regards to a few guys in your class. Every coach knows it. You just don't know who it's going to be, and you got to be ready for it. That's why signing numbers matters, signing balanced class matters, and signing versatility is important as well. You're right, though. Again, great post here. Football in high school is fun. Football in college is a job. It can still be fun to a certain degree, but it's a whole different animal. Luke, the run James Franklin has been on the last 3 days is one of the more impressive I've ever seen. That's a good point. Virginia Tech was all but dead. Congrats to Virginia Tech, man. It's cool that program is, and their fans, rabid, are going to be into it again. Enter Sandman, ironically, is one of my all-time favorite songs. I'm a huge Metallica guy. I love it that Virginia Tech's going to be good again. I think it's fantastic. Let's see what they can do this next fall. They're probably going to take a little time. I don't know if they'll be bowl eligible next year or where they'll be, but that's going to be fun. I look forward to seeing Virginia Tech win some games, and that's a great way to go. I'm going to hit a quick break here. We'll get back into it. But again, for those of you in the chat, comments, by all means, fire away, whatever you want to do with all the different comments. But please ask me questions in regards to number one class, best player, who you think is. There's no reason we can't talk about this. It's National Signing Day, man. This is a holiday. Let's have some fun with it here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by those over at FanDuel. The NFL is moving fast in one play, and suddenly everything feels different in a football game. That's what makes live betting on FanDuel such an exciting endeavor. You're not just watching the game here. You're watching everything unfold in real time, and that change is a lot of fun. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. There can be a lot of different reasons. Quarterback gets hot, a turnover, the weather changes, maybe it's a rainstorm comes in, maybe it's just because of the rivalry and that team that just can't seem to get over the top against another one. It's a little more exciting when that kind of stuff happens. FanDuel lets you jump in on the moment when over those kinds of situations happen. So you got live spreads, money line that adjust instantly. You got player props that you can hit on, receivers getting hot, maybe the quarterback in the fourth quarter, whatever it may be, next touchdown score, drive results. There's a lot of different things you can ride with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day, each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 podcasting network. Let's talk a little bit more about the overall theme and why I rank teams the way I do. And again, comment in the chat if you have anything you want to say about who you think a great player is or great team, whatever it is as far as recruiting class this year. There are 2 or 3 things that I look at primarily, then we get into some of the subpoints. Number 1, did you meet your class needs? Let's use USC as an example. They needed linemen across the board, period. For the most part, they struggle in the trenches over the last 3-4 years. They've started to slowly move in the right direction. They didn't beat Oregon, Notre Dame, or Illinois. All road games this year, but they're trending in the right direction. They did beat Michigan. They played pretty well in the trenches, but more talent is still the key. Lincoln Riley and his group signed more than 10 linemen. Lincoln Riley and his group signed impact linemen to pay. I'm telling you, that kid's going to play next year at USC. He's a tackle out of IMG. He's a California kid. Great kid. However, the biggest key for them isn't just alignment, it's the balance. Over the last 10 years, there has rarely been a USC class that had balance. What do I mean by that? It's one thing to have a position that you're in a good spot with, but you know how you keep it there long term? Even if you're good and fill in the blank at the position, sign 1 or 2 players there. Don't take a class with no player at a position. Now, kicker and punter, that's a little different. I'm talking about traditional football positions. Linemen in particular. Offensive line classes that have fewer than 3 O-linemen, I really frown upon. So do most O-line coaches and head coaches. Defensive line. Did you get defensive tackles? If you go through a great class, you're going through, but you didn't get a single defensive tackle, that's a problem. There are spots that are a little bit more magnified because there aren't as many of them. So trying to make up for it in the next class is a very difficult task. D tackle, DN, and corner are the ones I'm hyperbolic about. Offensive tackle, it's a little different. They're hard to project, but you can take big defensive ends, big tight ends. There's a few ways you can circumvent that. Tricky, but you can do it. And then finally, with this, impact players, it's not just meeting your needs. It's not just not missing out on anybody and having balance. Did you sign some guys that are going to come in and just flat out contribute? They're paying kids now, so they expect it. Those are the big three. Your balance, impact players, and of course, meeting needs. But what else is there? Did you find the right fits? And this is something that's a very touchy issue, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's signing day and it's time just to be real. If you take nothing else from this podcast, listen right now. College football recruiting is very difficult. Many people think that the NIL is why kids end up signing with any given school. That is false. The number one reason that kids still sign, and it's not close, are relationships. Those staffs that put in the time, the effort, and use ingenuity to gain not only the trust of the recruit, but the mother, the high school head coach. Maybe it's the trainer that's a local famous guy, maybe a former NFL guy. It could be lots of different reasons. It's not just the recruit that you're bringing to your program, it's the entire package of people around that recruit as well. The NIL can be the finish line part if it's close between 2 or 3 programs, but it's not the signifier for why schools win as a general rule. There are exceptions. And again, today I talked about one of them, but that's the exception again. The number one reason that kids pick schools are the coaches that represent them, not the logo on the shirt. That will not change. To that end, who are the programs that do it the best? I've talked about this a number of times, and I'm really steadfast. There are 4 programs right now that are different than anybody else in college football. Who are they and why? In no particular order: Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Notre Dame. They all have something in common. What is that? Because they're different locations, different kinds of schools. One's private, one's West Coast, one's South, another one's public in the Midwest. What's the signifier between those 4 that makes them the same? They each have a head coach that does 2 things extremely well. Game day decisions, never goes out of style. And secondarily, it's not just that they're good recruiters, they are absolutely motivated by recruiting. Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman, Ryan Day, and oh yes, Kirby Smart. Those 4 coaches are different because they are difference makers when decisions are made for elite recruits. Look at the guys in the top 100. I don't care if you're using the On3/Rival system 24/7, you listen to me or anybody else. The top kids, you're going to see those 4 programs consistently over the last few years and again this year towards the top of the list. And it's the personality of the recruits mixing with the personality of the coaches who adjust to the kids, not the other way around, to get them to their campuses. When I speak with recruits, 7-on-7 coaches, trainers, etc., those 4 coaches come up all the time. It's not just the logo they represent. Those are all big brands, but they do it differently because the head coaches often lead the charge. If you do not follow a school where you can honestly say, our head coach is not just one or the other here, but both really good on game day and a really good recruiter as a closer, especially, your chances of seeing that school win a national title probably aren't great. There are a few other schools that could be in that mix here soon. I think Mike Elko probably fits that at A&M. He's just got there, though. Let's give him another year or so. They will probably join that mix if I was to guess. You could say that with Steve Sarkisian. They've done a great job. It's Texas. It's not hard to sell, but they're still having a great class. They're probably in that next tier, top 10 class again this year. He's done a really good job for the Horns, no question. Let's see what Lane Kiffin does. It'd be easy, very easy, to rest on his laurels and just kind of go about his business because he's a play caller. He's a guy that likes to have fun. He likes to joke around on X and different handles on social media. But if he really wants to turn the Bayou Bengals into a national title contender, it will be the high school ranks, not the portal like he did at Ole Miss, that signifies that program's taken the next step to be a top 5 program again. They're not that far from it, but this next class for Lane Kiffin will help detail whether or not LSU is back as a top power broker in the college football landscape. Of course, we got Summerall at Florida. We've got Alex Golesh at Auburn. I think he's a great coach. Can he recruit the 5 stars? Can Summerall recruit the 5 stars at Florida? These guys coming up from the G6 level in a year or two, we may or may not add them to the list. Is Dabo done at Clemson at being that list? They've fallen off. I don't know what's going on there. And is there anybody else? Should I talk about Signetti in a year or so? Are they going to hit that next level in high school recruit? All these things are fascinating to me, and it's why college football is undoubtedly the best sport to follow in the American landscape, because there's nothing else like it. There is no other sport on and off the field like college football. The drama, pageantry, the unexpected decisions, roster moves, head coaching moves, assistant moves, conference realignment. There is nothing like college football, and recruiting is smack dab in the middle of all of it. So with that, I think that we're very blessed to honestly be a part of all this. Let's see here. Luke, would you prefer Curtis or Henderson for number 1 quarterback in the country? I have Henderson. I know him a little better than I know Jared. I think there are a couple other guys that you could put in there. Ryder Lyons is the most consistent of that group. He's probably the most surefire to make an impact. But outside of that, like, quarterback is a mess to project long term. Remember, with quarterback, it's a little different here. It's a little different. Here's why. It's not just whether you're good. It's the fit with the tight ends, the linemen, and all that. No position is impacted by several positions the way QB is. Is the coordinator the right guy? Does the coordinator stay? Does the defense play at least part of the role? Because quarterback's not making tackles. He's not picking off passes. Are they always playing from behind and he's got to throw when everybody in the stadium knows he's got to throw, including the other team's defense coordinator? So where you're at matters. Keyshawn's going to Houston. Jared Curtis is going to Vandy. No offense to Vandy. I need to see it past Diego Pavia. They're going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be SEC top tier good consistently. Prove me wrong. Houston's a program that until they have some better NIL, they develop guys and they leave. They got to spend a lot more money. Is Keyshawn going to have the weapons? So quarterback is really, really hard to figure out. Let's see here. Looks like we're about done on the chat. Parting shot here. I'll probably talk a little bit more about the recruiting classes over the next couple of days, but I am traveling tonight. I'm headed back home to go visit some family and discuss all the different things that are going on. And in football, it's kind of hard to do that when you're behind the wheel of a car. I've got about a 10-hour drive ahead of me. I'll start that drive tonight. I will get to some more stuff and talk about more individual classes. I did a overview of Alabama and Notre Dame's class already. That's up today on the Portal podcast. And I'll have some more. Again, I want to see Georgia's. I'm really curious about theirs. How does LSU finish? Ole Miss? There are a lot of things going on in the Southeastern Conference that are fascinating. And the other one that I've touched on a little bit today, does Indiana pull anybody? They're a top 5 program right now in terms of 2-year window, but not top 5 in terms of how they recruit. If they want to remain in the top 5, they got to start getting some of those kids. Even if it's not a bunch of them, I'd be curious to see if they could swing another recruit or two today, and I wouldn't be surprised. That's a really, really well-coached institution right now. Like, top to bottom, you could argue Indiana's got the best staff. So with that, let's see what the Hoosiers do. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We will see you again soon.